Ah, the Commodore 64, the little beige box that could. Before the C64 took over the world, the VIC-20 was the first home computer to sell over 1 million units, bringing arcade-style gaming in the living room, assuming your living room could handle 5 kilobytes of RAM. In this video, we're going to dive into my favorite VIC-20 games, those pixelated gems that turn that chirping bird box into pure 8-bit portal of fun. Whether you remember popping in cartridges, loading from cassettes, or just staring at those wonderfully mesmerizing rainbow stripes in a boot-up, this list is a trip down retro memory lane. So fire up your datasets and get ready. I'm Professor Retro, and these are the VIC-20 games that still hold a special place in my heart. Released in 1981 by Commodore, Radar Rat Race was a launch title for the VIC-20. And immediately stood for its fast-paced, addictively simple gameplay. It's got rats, cheese, and more near-death experiences than a mouse at a cat convention. Well, here's your concept. You're a blue rat racing through a maze, trying to collect cheese while avoiding enemy rats that want you dead. Sounds familiar? Sure. It's the clone of Namco's Rally X, but this game brings its own rodent-powered flavor to the table. Yeah. You get a radar that shows where the cheese is, hence the name Radar Rat Race, and it's like Google Maps for mice, if Google Maps was trying to kill you. So let's break down why Radar Rat Race deserves your respect. First of all, the controls are tight. For a game running in a keyboard that looks like it came from a microwave, this game controls shockingly well. Second is its addictiveness. Just one more try turns into 30. The cheese never sleeps, neither will you. Then there's the radar mechanic, legitimately clever. The radar gives you a heads up without making things too easy. It's an early example of the HUD design that actually matters. And lastly, the sound effects. That repeating loop of 3 blind mice, it's catchy, it's weird. It's the anthem for your impending doom. Now keep this in mind. Radar Rat Race was running on the VIC-20, a computer with 5K of RAM. That's not enough storage to store one meme today. Yet, Radar Rat Race delivers smooth animation, strategic gameplay, and that magical just one more run feeling that modern games try so hard to replicate. This is more than just your usual Pac-Man clone. It's proof that limitations breed creativity. It's like the developers were told, here's a potato and a deadline, make it fun, and they actually did. I love this game because it's not just your average Pac-Man clone. It has an awesome premise, and yes, it is a kind of a copy of Namco's Rally X, but I remember playing this on the cartridge on the VIC-20, on one of those cartridge things where you could put multiple game cards in and just choose which one you want to play. So if you like this type of game, or if you like Namco's Rally X, give Radar Rat Race a try. Released in 1983 by Bert and Sahor, Choplifter on the VIC-20 is based on the old arcade hit. The VIC-20 version may have had simpler graphics compared to other platforms, but the core gameplay was intact. You could fly left or right, land carefully to let hostages aboard, and make a break safely. But be careful, move too fast, and you leave someone behind, or worse, crush them. Yes, this game had consequences. Now, comparing the Apple II or Commodore 64 versions, sure, the VIC-20 version was more basic, but what it lacked in polish, it made up for in pure, absolute charm. It was a miracle this game ran as well as it did on a machine with 5K of RAM. That's less memory than your smart toasters has today. And let's be honest here, on the VIC-20, just getting a game like this was a big deal. It showed us that this little beige keyboard could deliver arcade-style thrills at home. And sure, it was tough. Tanks would blast you out of the sky, jets would strive you, and one mistake could mean watching a tiny, itty-bitty pixelated person get turned into a casualty. The stakes were high, and that made every successful rescue feel like an absolute victory. Choplifter on the VIC-20 was proof that you don't need photorealistic graphics to feel like a hero. Just a helicopter, some hostages, and a keyboard that smells slightly like a melted piece of plastic. Demon Attack on the VIC-20 is one of those rare games that just feels right. Developed by Image, a company known for their arcade-style hits, Demon Attack delivered high-energy action in a surprisingly tight little bitty package, especially considering the VIC-20's modest 5K of RAM memory. You control a lone laser cannon at the bottom of the screen, demons, flying down in formation. Your job? Blast them to bits before they overwhelm you. Sounds simple? It is, and that's what makes it so dang addictive. These aren't your average cannon fodder aliens either. These demons split, dart around, and force you to stay on your toes. This isn't a sit back and sip your Crystal Pepsi kind of shooter. It's intense. So let's talk visuals, why don't we? For a VIC-20 game, Demon Attack is a graphical show-off. Colorful sprites, smooth animation, and some of the best looking explosions on the system. No joke here. This game somehow crams arcade vibes into a computer that can't even spell arcade without a memory of expansion. The game gets harder the longer you play. More demons, faster attacks, less room for error. It's a test of reflexes and endurance. 1 minute you're casually blasting, the next you're sweating like you're in the finals of a VIC-20 esports tournament. Demon Attack may not have the name recognition of Galaga or Space Invaders, but on the VIC-20 it's one of the best bang for your bite shooters you can find. Fast, fun, flashy, and honestly a little demonic. To me, Demon Attack was a great Space Invaders clone, and the concept of the enemy diving at you while shooting you, as well as splitting into two identical enemies, also added a great level of difficulty. So if you like games like Space Invaders, but one was a little bit different, give Demon Attack a try. So before the age of ray tracing, DLCs, and frame rate debates, there was the VIC-20, and one game tunneled its way into our hearts and minds, and that was Dig Dug. Yeah, that's right, Dig Dug on the VIC-20 is not just a port, it's a pocket-sized miracle in 8-bit form. The VIC-20 version of Dig Dug was released alongside other home computer versions in 1982, shortly after their arcade game's release. But let's be real here, the VIC-20 wasn't exactly known for arcade-perfect ports, but Dig Dug, this little cartridge somehow pulled it off miraculously. Simple, colorful, and still today addictive. You're a tiny guy with an air pump blowing up underground and inflating monsters until they pop. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's because it is, and it is absolutely glorious. Now, you've got two enemies to deal with here. First are the pukas, those googly-eyed tomatoes with ski goggles, and Fagars, the fire-breathing lizards who clearly didn't read the no flamethrowers in tunnels memo. These guys don't just walk, they float through walls. That's not just AI, that's black magic on a VIC-20. So let's talk strategy for a second. There are two schools of thought you could go with here. There's the direct pump and pop, or you could bait the baddies into rock traps like a pixelated Bugs Bunny. Each level is a chess match, underground, except instead of pawns, you are dealing with floating sentient produce. Now, I know, sure, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the arcade version, but for a 1981 home computer with 5K of RAM, geez, I keep reminding you that, it's a minor miracle. The game runs smoothly, the controls are responsive, and most importantly, it's pure fun. Pure nonsense, arcade-style fun. Dig Dug on the VIC-20 is more than just a game. It's proof that even in the early 80s, you didn't need fancy graphics or teraflops of power to have a blast. You just need a guy in a jumpsuit, a bike pump, and a dream. Now, I let Dig Dug because it's a great port of the old arcade version. Now, I know most of you are going to say some arcade ports don't turn out too well. Take Atari's E.T. for example, but Dig Dug came out brilliant. It looked just like the arcade version. Galaians, the arcade classic that brought us waves of colorful alien doom, precision shooting, and that iconic pew-pew sound. But today we're not talking about the arcade. No. We're diving into the pixel-drenched, wonderful world of a VIC-20. And yes, Galaian made its way there too, and you know what? It's actually kinda good. Now hold on a minute before you storm my comment section with, "The arcade was better." Of course it was, but for home computer with only 5K of RAM, remember I keep reminding you of that, and a keyboard that feels like you're typing on jelly beans, the VIC-20 version is a little miracle. Let's talk graphics. On the VIC-20, Galaian still manages to deliver vibrant sprites, distinct alien formations, and that sweet parallax starfield in the background. Sure, it's not arcade perfect, but the game captures the essence. You've got colorful enemies doing kamikaze dives, and that same urgent energy, and a screen resolution that makes a postage stamp look like IMAX. That's impressive. Now you're going to ask, what about the gameplay? Well, here you go. It's tight, responsive, and challenging. Everything you want in a shoot 'em up. Your ship moves smoothly, the aliens attack in waves, and yes, they will gleefully wipe the floor with you if your reflexes aren't just sharp. Just like the original arcade port. And the sound design as well. It's the VIC-20. You got one sound channel, and by some wizardry, they make it work. There's a raw charm to the beep explosions and shrill alien dive bombs. It's like music to your ears if your ears were wearing leg warmers and a Walkman. Look, Galaian on the VIC-20, the best version of the game? No, of course not. But it's a surprisingly faithful adaptation on a machine that was never meant to handle this kind of action. It's fun, fast, and full of heart. And for kids in the early 80s who couldn't afford a trip to the arcade every day, this was the next best thing. The VIC-20 version of Galaian is the first time I've actually played this game and actually fell in love with it back then. I still love this game as well. It's kind of on my list of top favorite retro games, and on one of my favorite systems, which is the VIC-20. Coincidentally, the VIC-20 is also one of the first microcomputers I've had as a kid, so this actually holds a very special place in my heart. Gorf wasn't just your ordinary Space Invaders clone, it was Space Invaders Remix. The VIC-20 version features multiple levels, each one with its own enemy patterns, challenges, and pacing. You've got the Astro Battle stage, which is basically Space Invaders, but with shields. Then there's Laser Attack Galaians, and even the flagship boss battle. Despite the VIC-20's limitations, the controls in Gorf are tight. Your little ship scoots around the bottom of the screen with just the right amount of jank to feel retro, but not so much that you throw your joystick across the room in frustration. Okay, so no one is calling the VIC-20 a graphic powerhouse, but Gorf does a solid job with what it's got. You've got your bright sprites, a good variety of enemies, and explosions that are, well, VIC-20 level satisfying. The audio, well, Gorf actually talks. Well, sort of. That robotic Gorfian voice from the arcade version is replaced by wonderfully beeps and bloops, but hey, it's charming in this game was built by wizards kind of a way. Gorf on the VIC-20 showed that even a limited system could deliver something close to an arcade experience at home. It was ambitious, creative, and way more replayable than it had any right to be. It wasn't just a shooter, it was a mini arcade compilation in one cartridge. So yeah, Gorf on the VIC-20 isn't just good, it's a miracle in 3.5K. If you got a VIC lying around or feel like putting up an emulator, give it a shot. Gorf might just sound like the name of a weird alien dentist, but it plays like a true classic. What I like about Gorf is the fact that, yes, each level is different, but each level kind of semi-represents each version of different arcade games. Like I said, it starts out with Space Invader type looking, then it goes into Galaian type games, and then so on and so forth, with each level getting more harder and harder. So if you want a game that's got multiple types of styles, Gorf is the type of game you should really try to boot up. First off, minor 2049er on the VIC-20 does something absolutely impressive. It crammed the full platform experience into a system with only, you guessed it, 5K of RAM. And unlike many VIC-20 games that feel half-baked or stripped down, this one delivers the goods. It's got multiple screens, slick animation, and responsive controls. So you won't get all 10 levels like the Atari version, but you do get a solid handful of cleverly designed stages. Each one is packed with ladders, conveyor belts, moving platforms, and, you guessed it, radioactive slime that'll make you jump very carefully and calculated. The enemies are ruthless, the level's layout demands real skill, and the game never holds your hand. It's tough, but it's fair. And that's what makes it fun. The tension, the edge of your seat jump, and that VIC-20's magic. So let's talk sound here. The VIC-20's chip doesn't exactly rival a symphony orchestra, but minor 2049ers squeezes in catchy bleep bloops and warning tones that give you that pure early 80s arcade vibe. It's got charm, and it knows it. So if you got a VIC-20 at home, or an emulator for that fact, give this one a go. This is more than just a historical curiosity. It's genuinely fun, well-crafted game that deserves someone to love. It's one of those early platformers I've played before I even played Super Mario Bros. So if you enjoy this, it's great. You can either play this version or play the original, which came on the Atari 2600. The VIC-20 port of Q*bert, released in 1983, manages to capture the core gameplay of the original arcade hits. You're still hopping around in a pyramid of cubes, changing their colors while avoiding bouncing balls, purple snakes, and whatever else the game decides to throw at you. Now, despite the limitations of the hardware, the VIC-20 version sticks to what made the original game addictive. Simple, fast-paced gameplay, and escalating difficulty that makes you yell, whatever that is in real life. Now, I know the graphics aren't pixel perfect, but on the VIC-20, it's actually pretty charming. The pyramid is clearly recognizable. Q*bert looks, well, Q*bert, and the enemies are distinct enough that you won't confuse coyly with an orange letter Q. And considering the VIC-20's color limitations, the game does a solid job of using contrast to help you keep track of what's going on. It may not be arcade flashy, but it gets the job done. And honestly, it kind of has this cozy, blocky charm that feels just about right. So let's move on to sound. Sure, it's beepy, but it's a good beepy. You get satisfying boings when you jump, a sad little splat when you die, and the trademark garbled swearing when Q*bert actually falls. For the VIC-20's single sound channel, it pulls a lot off. It's not just noise, it's expressive noise. And that's a win in my book. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, Q*bert on the VIC-20 is fun. Simple, fast, and challenging in the perfect 80s arcade kind of way. And that's really all it needed to be. It's proof that with the right design and even a 1980s home computer with less RAM than your microwave can deliver, an experience worth your time. Now, before Blizzard put out Diablo, and before Bethesda inundated you with Skyrim, before roguelikes were called roguelikes, there was sort of Fargoal. And believe it or not, it was slashing its way through dungeons on the humble VIC-20. Yeah, the beige beauty was just, you guessed it, another 5K of RAM out of the box. But against the odds, Fargoal managed to pull off something kind of amazing. So let's dive into this classic dungeon crawler, and is it still worth talking about? First off, let's talk ambition. Sword of Fargoal wasn't content in being another basic dungeon maze with a sword sprite. This thing had randomly generated levels, yes, on a machine that basically had the processing power of a confused toaster. So every time you played, the dungeon changed, and that added serious replayability. You couldn't just memorize the layout unless you had some kind of psychic link with the VIC-20, in which case, please see a doctor. Another thing it had was Fog of War, which meant you could see only parts of the map you'd explored. Then it had a real sense of mystery and yet danger. You never knew what was lurking around the corner. Could it be treasure? Could it be a monster? Could it be instant regret? Combat was simple but tense. You didn't just mash buttons, you had to manage your health, look for healing scrolls, and pray you didn't step on a trap 2 stealth away from a treasure. Sword of Fargoal made you feel like an adventurer. You were digging deeper, leveling up, grabbing loot, and ultimately searching for, you guessed it, that legendary sword of Fargoal itself, the holy grail of low-res weaponry. But here's the kicker. It was fun, not in a haha this is nostalgic kind of way, but in a real way. I actually want to beat this way. It nailed the addictive loop, explored fight, loot, repeat. Honestly, Sword of Fargoal was ahead of its time. It laid down the groundwork for games we still play today. You could argue it walked so that games like Hades and Dead Cells could run. Is it perfect? No. The graphics are blocky, the sound is minimal, and the load times, well, they give you time to make a sandwich, but for what it tried and succeeded in doing, Sword of Fargoal is a VIC-20 gem, a gritty little dungeon crawler that proved you didn't need flashy graphics to have a grand adventure. Now, I like Sword of Fargoal because it's one of those minimalistic adventure games where you didn't have flashy graphics, complicated storylines, you just search through a pixelated maze, and made of symbols and things, and the combat was like playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. You had to realize that you may have to have better weapons than the actual monster you were fighting, let alone traps and treasures. So, if you like minimalistic adventure games, this is about as minimalistic as it gets, and yet it is fun at the same time. And there you have it, folks, some of my absolute favorite games that came on the VIC-20. They might not have the flashiest graphics or the deepest gameplay, but there's a certain charm to those early 8-bit classics that you just can't replicate. Whether it's blasting aliens, dodging enemy fire, or just trying to beat your high score, the VIC-20 gave us a window into what gaming was becoming, and for a lot of us, it was the start of a lifelong hobby. So, if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos on vintage gaming goodness. Got a favorite VIC-20 title I missed? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep those pixels blocky and your joysticks clicky. Peace out, and stay frosty.